Thank you for joining us at Toy Fair University. Next up, we have License It or Launch It, and your moderator is your moderator is Matt Nuccio from Design Edge. Matt?
Thank you very much. So we are the United Inventors. We are all part of the United Inventors Association, which is the country's largest inventor advocacy group. We're a nonprofit that was born out of the United States Patent and Trademark Office in order to educate and advocate through inventors through education. So that being said, I'm Matt Nuccio. I own Design Edge. We're a product development company. We've been in business for next year will be 40 years, and we've worked with just about every major toy company. And I've seen many facets of it, and over the years I've gotten to become very close with this group here, and we were able to build a special hub in the UIA called the Toy Hub, where we just really focus on the specifics of the toy industry and how inventing and licensing works within the parameters of our industry. That being said, I'd like to first introduce you to Mr. Dougal Grimes, who then can tell you who he is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dougal Grimes. I've been in the toy and game industry for about 17 years. I spent 11 years at Hasbro, 5 years at Spin Master, and now have my own company developing games for content creators. A majority of the time I've worked within tabletop games, inventor relations, and licensing.
Dan, please.
Dan Luther. I've been in the toy industry for about 15 years, the last 12 years at Hasbro, working on various brands in a design function, and then most recently leading the inventor relations team over toys and games at Hasbro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angus Walker. I currently head up the games and outdoor business at Spin Master. I've been there for about a year, but prior to that, I was at Hasbro for about 20 years in different roles, from inventor relations to product development to marketing.
I'm Scott Landsbaum. I'm a business attorney. I've been in the toy industry for 28 years now, which scared me a little bit to say that. And I handle soup to nuts on the business side, both for inventors doing invention licensing, and then for operating companies doing everything from you have a concept to selling your company, distribution agreements, entertainment licensing, everything in between.
Hi, Josslynne Welch, president and owner of Litsky Public Relations. Also been in the industry for 28 years. Yes, it's a scary number, but we know what we're talking about. The agency focuses in working with kids and family brands, and we've been doing it for almost 40 years.
All right, today we're going to talk about your options as an inventor, whether you license something, whether you launch it yourself, or if you launch it with the purpose to license it. So first I'm going to start off with Mr. Grimes here, and we're going to talk as a man who spent many years at both Hasbro and Spin Master acquiring products for licensing. Yeah. Can you tell us some of the benefits of a licensing model?
Well, some of the benefits of the licensing model, I think, are you're going to be working with, as an inventor, if you're just wanting to focus on one specific area, and say you are an inventor who is a fantastic copywriter, or you write really great games rules, and that's your main focus. The benefit of licensing is you can find companies that match that level of what type of game you're making, for example, and they will do and work on a lot of the other heavier lifting of what it takes to get a product to market. The manufacturing, the engineering, sales, marketing, which we'll cover as well. So effectively, you yourself as an inventor, you can find a partner who you could license it to, and they will take on board a lot of the other aspects of this. And of course, like as a royalty you'll get, it's effectively based on the sales of what that company's doing. So there's a mutual success between the two parties.
Would anyone on the board want to help define when you think would be a better option for licensing? And by that I mean when you're choosing a licensing partner, right? Do you want to pay attention to that, what kind of company it is, the size of it, or obviously the distribution does count, but what would be some key points that you think an inventor, a newbie inventor, should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all great things to consider. I think the company that you partner with is always incredibly important, because they're going to be the ones that are, if you do license it to them, they're going to be the ones that are basically like taking your baby and like bringing it to life. So you want to find a great match. I think some of the things to think about are, to Dougal's point, is like, what are those complementary skills or attributes that that company has that maybe you don't have, and a lot of times it's scope and scale or distribution, global distribution versus local distribution, et cetera. But that said, there's also, it can be done, by yourself, which is kind of, I think, the big question is which is which is better for you depending on what you want to do. There's smaller companies and agencies that you can kind of work with to help do some of that, or you can go to a big toy company who can do it all in one. But there's pluses and minuses to both.
Yes, I do want to mention that we only have 40 minutes, and this is a conversation that could go on for a very long time. So the floor is really open to questions at any point. So if we're talking about something specific and all of a sudden it pops in your head like, oh, I'd like to know more about that, please raise your hand and we'll gladly take the questions. Scott, do you see a difference between like licensing contractually with a large toy company versus a small toy company? And what would be the advantages and disadvantages of both?
Well, if you're licensing to a large company, they're pretty set in their licensing models and their contracts, and you're going to understand that you're giving away your baby, and you're probably not going to have any influence or say in what goes on after that. If you're working with a smaller company that maybe doesn't have the same distribution and resources, but they may be more open to inventor input and some inventor control, or maybe you as the inventor retaining some rights to your item, whether that's for like digital, or if you're doing something that's character-based, like ancillary licensing, or things like that. So you have, with a smaller company, you've got more freedom to do something maybe more entrepreneurial, but there's obviously a trade-off.
The gentleman in the front, you have a question? Oh, the mic's not on?
Rate. What's a common licensing rate for someone who invents?
Who in inventor relations wants to answer that question? 2%. No.
I think it varies.
The standard is about 5%. With smaller toy companies, you might want to leverage what would be an advance for a higher royalty. I mean, that's what I try to do. If they don't want to give you any money up front, you try to leverage that to get a bigger percentage on the other side. Anyone? Any other models that you would say? If there's another license involved in it, say there's a movie tied into it. It's Star Wars or something. Your royalty will be reduced because they're also paying a royalty to that franchise. So sometimes the royalties can drop down to 1.5% if the license is big enough. Anyone? Well, you've worked on.
Yeah, no, that's fair to say, and I think in those cases, it's in the best interest of the product, right? If it's tied to a big movie, it can be worth it from a upside perspective to take the lower royalty, so that ultimately the company can still be profitable in making it, but also you're tied to a huge entertainment tentpole, so that the item's success is tied to that as well.
So if you're launching something yourself, you have to wear a lot of hats, and people don't always realize that they build inventory. It's the field of dreams. They feel like if they build it, they will come, but that's not the case. You have to be able to market and promote your products a lot. So, Josslynne, could you tell us a little bit about, as a startup, bootstrapped, what are some easy ways to promote your product?
Sure. I think a lot of people view PR as getting on TV or working with influencers, but it really starts about storytelling. And so I think you want to think about what is your story and your personal brand, and then what's the story behind your product, the why. So you want to be able to clearly articulate quickly to prospective partners or manufacturers why you're doing this product and what the story is behind. So thinking about creating a narrative, because once you create that narrative about who you are and why you're doing what you do and why you want to put that item into the world, you can pull that through all of your conversations, whether it's on the trade show floor at Toy Fair or you're doing LinkedIn posts, and really understanding how to tell your personal story before you go out into the world with your product.
Yeah, I think to build on that, especially if you're launching it yourself, I think at the moment, there's never been a better time in terms of the tools that are available for people to launch something themselves. So from crowdfunding, through AI tools, social media. And it's a really good point you bring up, because the marketing of something is actually one of the biggest question marks of how you get awareness of a product. And if you're doing it yourself, bigger companies obviously have more money, lots of channels and things like that. But now with social marketing and building your own brand and story, which is, it's obviously not free, it's your time, but I think especially this year you've started to see people really go more into behind the scenes, the making of something, which is really, really interesting. And I think I was reading something about this is a bit of an antithesis to the AI slop, and it's going to come more present now where people see something like, I've made this game, I've made this toy, and they're showing really raw footage, and it really builds into the story of what you're selling either as a company or a product as well. So there's a lot of great tools for that.
So in recent years, we've seen quite a bit of what we're calling launch to license. So you don't, some people think, well, I don't want to start a toy company. I don't want to be doing this for 20 years. I don't want to own a forklift. You know, I don't want to have a whole bunch of employees. But people are now launching products, getting a track record, and then offering up for licensing. So Angus, you want to talk a bit about how appetizing that is to a larger toy company when you see a success like that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it definitely, as a avenue to go, is a really interesting one because, to your point, you kind of have demonstrated success out of the gate. So when you're, a lot of the times when a company's trying to decide whether they're going to license something, it's all about trying to, you know, assess the opportunity. If somebody's already launched it and gotten some traction, that goes a really long way. It also, you know, gives, I think, the creator a little more leverage too, because you also have success. So so it's an interesting avenue to go for sure.
Scott, do you want to elaborate a bit on that from a legal standpoint and contractually, how that could be an advantage or disadvantage?
Well, I think, you know, so much, if you're an inventor and your product's never been out, you're really sort of, all you have to leverage and argue with is basically like the desire you're feeling back from the other company.
I think it's cool.
And your ability, right,
My
your
kids
ability
love
to
it.
convince them that other people think your idea is really hot as well. If you've already launched it, and you've got a lot of great traction and you've got a lot of interaction on social media, it gives you like this independent third-party validation to go back and negotiate maybe an extra point on the royalty or a higher advance with some of these companies or some better terms. It just gives you better leverage to be able to say to them, well, look, I actually don't really need you. Like, I can just keep building this myself, so you come to me with a compelling story as to why I should pull the plug on what I'm doing and give my product to you.
Yeah, it's kind of like the flipping houses model. Like you build it, flip it, but there's been some big successes in recent years. Dougal, you want to tell people about some companies that you know of that have done this sort of model, but then they decided not to go into the licensing route? Like they started that way and then it became such a success?
Yeah, there's, I guess there's a few different companies. I guess one of them, which is interesting, is Exploding Kittens, which is a phenomenally successful company. And Alan Lee created the game with Matthew Inman, and they went on crowdfunding, which at the time I would say is slightly different from how it operates today. But when they did the most successful game on Kickstarter ever, still to this day, after that, when I was working at Hasbro, you know, we approached them. We're like, okay, let's do a licensing deal. We'll offer you this. And for him, it was like, well, no, I want to carry on this success. I want to build a company around it, and I want to carry on and do more things. And that wasn't, from what I understand, his original intent. It was like, we just launched this game. But I think through the process of doing that, he realized a couple of things, the success and how they could manage it and the resources they'd built. So there was an inflection point of just choosing, we're going to build a company after that. And obviously now, as part of Asmodee, hugely successful game and company.
Oh, I like them. Josslynne, if you know the inventor's plan ahead of time, would you change your model of how you would promote them? Like if the plan was to launch it and then license it versus just launching a product, is there?
I think it depends on the inventor knowing themselves and what they're good at and what they're capable of doing, right? Because I think if you're going to go it on your own, you have to be ready to tell your story, leverage your own channels, do your own marketing and publicity. And if that's not something you're comfortable doing or it's not something you're good at, then you're going to want to look to a partner that has that built into their model and how they're going to support the inventors that they work with.
Again, by the way, floor is open to questions, but afterwards we'll also be in this little yellow couch section if you want to have more of a one-on-one with any of us. So How we doing on time, guys? Oh, another question. Here we go.
So if you're going to launch your own game, what's the financial commitment, minimum to mid-range? Are you talking about a few $1,000s, a few $100,000?
It's your home and your firstborn.
There's quite. I mean, Matt has obviously a lot of experience in this because you deal with this in end to end every day with Design Edge, and it depends on many factors, of course. If it's just a card game or a very complex, heavy strategy game with tooling involved and things like that. So there's a couple of answers to that question depending on how complex your product is. You know, a 52 deck of cards very different from, let's say, like a Settlers, a Catan with premium finish and things like that. So it depends on the complexity of your item, and then also your expectation. And again, the crowdfunding model, I don't want to keep harping on about it, but that is what we're talking about. It's a proof point of, it's a pre-sale, it's a early marketing, it's gauging interest, and a lot of people use that very successfully to gauge the interest so they can use that money to pay for the first inventory run. But you obviously have to do your homework beforehand to know that what you're charging those customers couldn't cover the cost of your inventory. And a lot of people have fallen afoul of that. So doing your homework beforehand on what your total cost is important.
It's not just your inventory, too, I want to point out. You have to do a lot for things like sales rep commissions. What is your 3PL, your third-party logistics? That's your warehouse. What are they going to charge you to store it, right? What is your trucking fees to get it out there? What's the trucking fees to get it out of there? What is your marketing budget? You know, there are some people have formulas. Some people might say you need to figure out how much money you want to make and allot 20% for marketing. Josslynne takes 50%. But there are different types of things in different models. So again, I often run into people who come to us and they want to build something, and all they've budgeted for was design and production. And now they have no money to promote the product. So that is a key thing. People aren't going to just instantly find it. You have to be able to get it out into the world. So there's another question over here.
And don't forget about legal fees.
Oh, yes. That's 90%.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. What a freaking all-star panel you guys put together here. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm Malte. I'm the sustainable toy guy. So my question, of course, has to be about sustainability. And having such a broad experience panel here, I'd just like to ask the question, how early on does sustainability is considered in the development of a product and including a license of that? Or can you think about scenarios where sustainability would go well with a license if it is built in early on?
Well, I mean, if you're green toys, it's the entire... Yes, we do that. Well, every company has a personality. Right. That's another thing. If you're building a company and you're going to put multiple products in, your company needs to have a personality. That's another thing I see inventors do. They'll start a company and they're all over the place. They got a spring-summer item. They got a doll. They got a water gun. You're not going to get all those buyers into your booth. You need to treat your line. You got to curate it so that your sales are funneled, so that you're taking advantage of your sales reps reach, your sales team, and the time of the buyer. So if you're building a company and you're doing card games, you might want to wait until you've got a lot of success and start a whole new division to do something else. At that time, just focus on that. Because you also, every year at this toy fair, they want to see something new. This is a fashion business. You can have a very successful item this year at Toy Fair, and next year you think everyone's going to come back to your booth. They're not really going to come back unless you're like, hey, now we have this. And even if this sometimes could just be a lost leader, it's a reason to get the buyer back in and discuss last year's success and see if they'll repurchase it again.
I would also say, like, it goes back to kind of finding that right partner. I think doing your homework. Obviously, there's companies that are, you want to, if sustainability is the crux of what your product is, what your passion is, you want to find a company to license it to that shares that passion and shares that expertise. So obviously everybody should always do their homework on the companies that they're pitching, but you want to go to a company that is going to be receptive to that, that's going to champion that, versus a company might be like, oh, this is cool, thanks for your idea, but I'm not going to, I'm going to do it my way necessarily. So I think a lot of it is, so much of all of this is kind of it's all about partnership, really, is finding whether it's finding the right partners to co-develop something with at the development stage, whether it's finding the right company to partner with in terms of taking it to the next step. But it's really just kind of starts with knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, and then finding those complementary partners that can make it happen.
And that may be a reason you want to start your own company rather than trying to license somewhere else. Like you have a passion for sustainability of a particular type of toy or product, and you're not seeing it out there, and so you just want to make it happen. And the only way to guarantee that your product gets to consumers your way is to do it yourself.
Yeah, pure lead toys. So as I mentioned before, this is a very broad subject matter. So if you got questions, even if they're not directly connected to where we're speaking, oh, here we go. I spoke too soon.
Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew. I'm from Duracell Batteries. Just a quick question for the big guys there, the big representatives of the big firms. To give a bit of confidence to the inventors here, how many inventors are you signing up a year versus developing in-house? Is it a significant proportion of your business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I mean, you definitely have to. It's a numbers game, so you have to see lots and lots of ideas. But those the items that tend to license are often you want to find those a lot. That's where a lot of like the really big innovative ideas come from, because I think there's a lot of very talented people in-house, tons of talented people in-house, but often they're so busy kind of doing the work that needs to get done that there's tremendous value to working with outside creators because they're bringing new, fresh perspectives, et cetera. It probably very much depends on the company, like how many items are licensed a year. I think it also depends on, tend to license more in games than in toy because there's just more ideas tend to come in for games than for toys. But the flip side is that games tend to be more fully fleshed out when they're brought in, whereas in toy a lot of the times it can be like a really cool feature that then gets kind of incorporated in a totally new way that hadn't even been thought of before. So there's lots of different ways and lots of different levels of kind of how licenses come in and how they end up.
Yeah, no, I would second that. We see probably thousands of ideas, but we really do look to the inventor community to help us see what we're not yet seeing, because the internal team can tend to have their head down executing. So we do really look to this group to say, what's next? What are we missing? What's not this year, but what's next year and after that? So we really look to build a pipeline for sure.
Before we get to your question, I want to point out that sometimes they develop stuff, it's successful, and they forget about it, and then accidentally relicense it. Do you want to tell a specific story, Dougal?
What are we talking about? Well, yeah, I mean, he was talking about a game Pie Face that came out, and that actually came out in the 1960s originally. Yeah, 1960s, and it was then over time kind of forgotten. And I think there was an old YouTube commercial, for the original commercial, that's one of these kind of kooky 1950s adverts, but then later on someone had redeveloped it and has the trademark, and it was relaunched, and it was one of the first sort of viral hits that went out there. Went on to YouTube, Scottish family played it, and then it became this global phenomenon. So I mean, that's actually a bigger thing around just like timing of things. Like that was literally a ridiculous game from the 60s that failed then, and then what is that, like 50 years later became like this $100 million game?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in because I think from a PR perspective, sometimes it's about the right thing at the right time, right? And so in the 1960s, think about the media landscape was very different. Now everyone has a screen in their pocket. Everyone's looking for fun, engaging content. So it's just another element to take into consideration when you're thinking about your product. How does it show up in video? Are people enjoying playing it? Can it go with influencers, and can they create engaging content, can then translate into TV coverage? So just thinking about how watchable it is in addition to how much fun you're having.
I would also just add one thing. I think timing is a really, we say like timing is everything, and just I'm sure you guys all know this, but when you bring an idea in and somebody passes on or doesn't get to the to the finish line, nine times out of 10, it's not because it's not a good idea. It's usually because it either doesn't fit into the current strategy or as kind of boring as oh, we only have X amount of items that we can put in our line plan or whatever. But those ideas are still amazing, and we've had so much success over the years going back to creators and being like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, hey, do you have anything in your in your closet of that is that might fit this bill? And there's really so many times there's great concepts that you have that maybe you haven't had luck with before, but the timing's right now, or something's relevant happening in pop culture or whatever. So don't ever throw your ideas out, because there's so many examples of things that might have been turned down for years and years that suddenly the timing's right and they take off.
Sometimes it's slot filling. So they might have a line that's very successful, and you come to them with a product that is fantastic, but it's going to compete with their $59.99 item that's doing very well. They're not going to, but they only have so much space on planogram, so they can't remove that item or have two items that are going to compete directly with each other. So they might come back to you 4 or 5 years later and say, after that item's run its course, and be like, you know what, we should reconsider this item. So a no isn't always a no. They might come back to you later. Oh, she's been waiting.
From what it seems like, if you license your brand to a bigger company, you lose a lot of control over it, but you don't have as much money. Is there a way to launch your own brand while having some form of capital at the same time outside of the brand you're working on? Because only 1% of these businesses are successful.
You're saying, is there a way to do it really bootstrapped? Is that basically what you're asking? Yeah, just smart marketing, right?
Are you talking about promotion, or are you talking about funding to get the product made?
Funding. Well, there's Kickstarter, but the general one is the friends and family. Yeah. So start small. But that's the other thing. Sometimes people want to start too small. If you're launching, there is a quantity that makes sense financially, not just for you, but for your consumers and for your retailers and for your distributors.
And I think, there's a lot that you can do for proof of concept yourself, right? I'm sure you're on social media. I'm sure you have lots of friends and family. So what is your item? Get them playing it. Record all of that, share it, and start to create some momentum behind whatever it is that you are inventing. You're very passionate about it, right? It came from your heart. So how do you help the people that love you create fun, excitement around that item, and then start sharing that on external channels? And so that when it is time to talk to someone, you have proof of concept, you have excitement behind you, and you're not just going in cold, right? And you've thought about the story that you're telling, because it came from your heart, right? You invented this. So you get to talk about why you invented it and why it's important to you, and then how much it excited all the people in your life, and you can use that to further your story in your conversations.
Yeah, to raise the money, right? Yeah, right. There you go.
Hi, this question is for you, Josslynne. I started a brand about 7 years ago, B2C, and then did the licensing route, and now I'm going back to B2C. A lot has changed with PR. Things I did now, I don't know if are done the same way. How much of PR in your world is strictly social media versus other ways of promoting your brand?
That's a great question. So much of it depends on the item, right? So I think that a great piece of plush has different news and media value than maybe an interactive game that's much more visual, right? And so I think it's based on the item and what your strategy is in terms of who your audience is, right? It's not just what it is, but who you're talking to, because for any PR, no matter when it is, whether it was back then or now, it's about reaching your audience on the platforms that they're on. And today it's very different. And so I would think about, are you tapping into influencers? How are you building your own social channels? And then thinking about the traditional media, because it's still relevant and valuable. And is it a TV-friendly item? Do you have an affiliate marketing program that you can leverage to get in sort of all of those top 10 and best of lists?
Explain what an affiliate program is to the audience, because not everyone knows what that is.
An affiliate program is when you're working with a retailer and you take their link and it's incorporated. So like we work with a lot of our clients and we'll take their Amazon links, or if they're running their own D2C that has affiliate backing. And it basically is a way for the media and whoever's using those links to get a kickback, right? So, and that's why you see so many of the coverage is now based on those top 10 lists and best of, because they're curating lists based on that affiliate content that then is the revenue driver for them. And so it's a really great way. And so much of PR, there's still a lot of earned media, but there's a lot of it that's tied to that financial piece of it. And I'm happy to chat with you on the yellow couches afterwards.
Yes, please.
Hi, how's it going? So I know there's outside-in licensing and inside-out licensing. I think there was
There's sideways licensing and backwards licensing.
Exactly. It was a talk
Licensing.
about, outside-in or whatever. What about when a product sort of exists in the nexus of those things? Like, let's say you have something that would work best if it had, let's say, an IP like Naruto. But obviously, the IP holder of Naruto is not going to license to some upstart inventor. Would you then go to someone who has the license for Naruto and then...
Well, first you find out if the license is available.
Right.
If it is, you can either approach them yourselves, or you find a large company and you say, I see an opportunity in a window here. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the big benefits to licensing something to a large company is their relationship and their portfolio of brands they work with. So obviously at Hasbro, we work with large entertainment properties and everything like that. So I think part of the value is the relationships we already have in place, and also the lift you get from those properties in your invention.
Yeah, I mean, as a startup, it's very difficult to get a license, an entertainment license or a sports license or anything like that, because...
And expensive.
And expensive. Like, they only want to license to companies they know have the wherewithal to get the product out and to do things right, and they know how to handle licensed products from a contractual standpoint and deal with royalties and artwork submissions and all those things. And then you're committing to an advance and a minimum guarantee. So it's quite a big haul as a newbie to like design something that's specific for an entertainment license and then go out and try to get it. And I don't know, from an inventor standpoint, how you guys feel about like designing specifically for one IP. It sounds very limiting to me. Like,
well, it's the classic. Actually, it took me a long time to learn this, but eventually I did. You try to make your prototypes as generic as you possibly can, actually, and let them, when you pitch to these guys, let them see the vision, and let them think they thought of it, not you.
Yeah, there's a couple of different tactics with that, and obviously, if you have an invention, let's go into like toy, right? And you're showing something that is a really amazing transformational dress or something like that. That can apply to many different brands. Barbie, Frozen, like, all these different ones. And so a lot of the time, especially companies will look at the inherent, they won't look at the license on it or the theme. They'll have to look at what the intrinsic value of what that the invention is. And so, yes, you can pitch it generic, let's say, or across things, but a lot of the time people then use a platform to show it in different versions just to give that idea. But a lot of the time companies will just add that on top. And I think I just want to add another thing. People do invent. There were some inventors here, our friends Keith and Wes. I don't know if they're there. They actually do a lot with Mattel and with Barbie, and they specifically work on that. Now, that doesn't mean there's no right or wrong way here, but people do focus in certain areas. If someone has an amazing transforming car, they maybe go to Hasbro because of Transformers, but it doesn't mean it has to purely exist under Transformers. It could apply to other, even like a Paw Patrol or something with a changing car. So it depends.
Yeah. And I would also say to that point, and I know every company is different, but I think there's a myth that, if you say you're, pitching for Paw Patrol, so you focus your pitch specifically on that IP. I think it's safe to say that most IR people know that, you're pitching your ideas to lots of companies, so you don't always have to reinvent the wheel for each. But I think that we often will see a concept that might be shown in a context that is a license or a brand that we don't necessarily have, but we see past that because we know that it's that everybody's trying to kind of pitch ideas to everybody else, and you don't, I'm speaking, subjectively, but I think, some other people may feel the same way. But I think for the most part, everybody understands that it's a tough game, and you're pitching to a lot of different people, and you don't need to like reinvent the wheel each time.
You can make your prototype generic, but then just do a render to show it in that particular license you're pitching. In fact, I highly recommend that, because sometimes you can sit on an idea for 5, 10 years, and if you're running around showing a prototype with a Captain Kangaroo license, they're going to know it's been sitting around a long time.
I think as well that it can actually help in terms of the creative process if you disassociate from that, because I've seen more often than not someone come in and it'll be something very specific, and then someone on the team is suddenly just like, oh my God, this could be perfect for blah, 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 something else. And then that becomes a big thing. And as an inventor, potentially being open to that feedback with some companies who have maybe knowledge that they can't share. They're working on different brands and things, and they're like, oh, this is going to be an amazing Harry Potter thing, rather than you thinking it was one thing. So that's a little part of how you could maybe free it up. But absolutely, last thing on that is, if you have, like, say, a Naruto brand, approach the company that has the licenses making those games and show it to them.
We have 5 minutes left, so please, questions. We'll gladly field them.
Thank you for taking time to answer my question. As an inventor, I have a product that I'm looking to present, and it's going to cross into multiple categories. How do you guys approach something like that, where it fits into 4 or 5 different categories as just one particular invention?
By category, you mean it's different brands, or do you mean like it's different, like it's like it could work as a swing set, but it could also be like an oven mitt?
Work in different segments, or
like arts and crafts, RC toy, outdoor play, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll speak specifically for Hasbro. We go across, all those categories to some degree. I think it's about knowing the company, and again, like back to the idea of making sure it's a good fit for that company. I think, if it's something that goes across multiple categories, it would be good to find a partner that plays in those categories already, probably. But I think we look at cross category stuff all the time. And again, like similar to sometimes we see a place for something that it wasn't initially pitched as. We have the internal knowledge to know which initiatives are going on that you may not know about, and we may say, this, you're pitching it in this category, but we actually see a fit for it in this category. There's often times where we'll see like baby dolls, and we'll actually license them as things in the action category. Maybe it's a Yoda or something like that. So I think it's good to see things cross category, and sometimes we see opportunities.
But it's got to focus at some point on rest or stay, particularly in one category. It can cross over, but the problem becomes there are multiple types of buyers for retailers. They're not all the same buyers, so you have to know which buyer you're going to get in front of. For a while, people were like, well, you can do the crossover stuff on Amazon, but now Amazon's become so the AI assistings. Again, people are looking for stuff, it's going to point to a specific category. So while it might be able to fall into different categories, it has to still solidly live in one strong.
But to some extent, it depends a little bit about what you're talking about. So if it's like a technology, like an art technology or something,
right,
and it could apply to like a fashion doll, but also like a pure painting craft kit or something, that might be something where you go to like smaller companies. Typically when you license a concept to a big company, they want all rights across all categories forever. But you
globally.
Globally, yeah. But you can go to smaller companies, you're really strong in paint kits. So I'm going to license this technology to you just for paint kits. And then go to someone else that maybe has like a small, infant doll line or fashion doll line or something, and say, okay, I'm licensing this to you just for that. And that's where, going to smaller companies might work out.
We have a question over here.
Hello.
Hello.
So, I was just issued my patent like 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I wish I knew what to do with it. So.
Well, you're off to a good start.
I don't know. But I'm actually not dying talking to people, so that's a real plus now that I'm getting out there. But I'm wondering, so it's a utility patent, And I'm realizing, talking to people.
Could you just get the mic up?
Oh, sorry. I'm realizing it's a utility patent. So I'm realizing as I'm talking to people, they love, they're loving that what this does. So I haven't even really thought about much about any of the big companies. So do I approach those big companies and say, this is what it is?
Oh, they love utility patents.
Yeah, we license patents quite often, and it can be a little. Scott could probably talk this better than myself, but there's concept licenses that we do all the time that don't involve patents, but we also do patent licenses, and lots of times that can be exclusive rights to that patent or exclusive rights in certain categories.
Field
of
of use or
but
that type
do
of
I
thing.
have to know that? Do I have to know those answers? I mean, can I just show it to you?
No, but Scott does.
No, you don't. I think your question is, do you need to know, like, what are you going to license it to them for before you talk to them, or what the...
Am I supposed to go in with some answers, or do
Well, I think what these guys would want to see is what your patent actually does in terms of the product. What is the product?
Yeah. Okay.
It's sort of hard maybe to license, just show them a patent and say, here, do you want this?
And it could be something simple, just the way it spins, or how it spins, or if it flips over in a certain way. You don't have to figure out that it's going to be the Hulk doing a jump 20 feet.
The key is you want to show the opportunity, show what that opportunity is, but you don't have to have it all figured out. That's the beauty of a company that has an in-house design department, is they can take that nugget of an idea or that patent and turn it into any number of things. So you just want to frame up the opportunity.
Right, but maybe you need to do some blue sky thinking about, like, if you have a patent and it covers technology that could work in toys and also in housewares and gardening equipment and things like that, then you need to at least have that understanding when you're talking to these companies, so that when it comes time, if they want to do a deal with you, you're not doing a global deal for all rights for everything, and you retain the rights to go out and say, okay, well, this also works in a weed whacker, and I want to be able to license it to Toro for weed whack.
And that's very common, especially with patent licenses, is to carve out a field of use. So you might give a field of use for toy and game for a toy company, but then everything else is you're open to kind of work with some other.
Well, we've gotten the vaudeville hook and been asked to be being forcefully removed from the stage, but we will be over here and we can continue the conversation in the yellow cushion section over there. Thank you.